Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the new year 2017, episode 78. I'm your host, John Scott, joined as always by my co-host, Matt Essex, and we welcome you to the Wrestling Skull podcast, our weekly show that's been going on for a long time now. And Matt, we're in the new year. I guess a lot of people, when they get to a new year, it's a fresh start, but in wrestling terms, Matt, and it's not so much that for us. It's more of a getting down to the more serious stuff at the back end of WWE's kind of year, I guess, towards the back end of April. Really, it's getting to that point again, Matt. And the strange thing is, Matt, it doesn't feel that long ago that we was talking about the same exact thing this time last year. It seems like it's gone really fast. Because I can remember talking about the whole Royal Rumble from last year going into it from this end and how they were trying to position Roman Reigns just right with the whole Vince McMahon and Triple H attacks going on. Has it been fast for you, Matt, in the wrestling terms this year?
I think in some ways yes, but in some ways it feels like it's dragged on a bit. Some storylines that should have been over, they dragged on this year.
Yeah.
Not to name any specific names, but yeah, when you think about it, when you think AJ Styles making his debut to where he is now, he's been on quite the journey, and it feels like a long one, even though the year has gone pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So guys, lots to talk about this week because, in the last 7 days or so, there's been lots of different stuff going on. Obviously, coming out of the holiday period, it's been always busy as ever. But lots to talk about, Matt, on this episode. And I wanted to kick things off, Matt, in what happened first. So UFC 207, Matt, Ronda Rousey, her big return. We spoke about it a lot on the podcast. We had Daniel Puder on a little while ago. He gave his thoughts. I think Daniel even called it himself that he thought Ronda was going to be victorious. Certainly the bookmakers also thought she was going to be victorious. Did you think she was going to be victorious, Matt?
I think it was only a week or two ago that we was on here talking about it, and I was saying, I heavily predicted her to win. But then I guess, Ronda was, the best in the world, and, I guess there's no doubt now that Nunes is, so it's always going to be hard to judge when you got two women of that caliber, and now Nunes has really solidified herself as, the woman to beat, because she looked incredibly strong.
Yeah, she did. It was. I think I've got to be fair with you. I think UFC done. They done the promoting of it. Matt was if you saw the videos that I saw anyway, they done so many videos where there was one particular video of Ronda, and it was all about her return, and she lifts. I think there's a scene where she's in a apartment or whatnot, and all of a sudden she gets into the garage and she's training, and there was so much hype, Matt, about this return. UFC's promotion was Ronda Rousey, she's back. It was all Ronda Rousey. We had some emails, Matt, from a couple of guys that actually went to the fight in Vegas from the UK, and they his name, by the way, was Steve, and he said with his friend that there was even posters out there, Matt, where it was Ronda Rousey in her kind of gear on one side, and instead of seeing her opponent on the other side of the sort of big poster, it was Ronda Rousey in a kind of casual wear, showing a different touch. So that's how much promotion was going on in this fight for Ronda Rousey. The promoting was heavily focused on Ronda Rousey. Something else interesting, whether people picked up on this or not, is that Ronda Rousey must have negotiated something where she didn't have to do the press, she didn't have to do the interviews before the fight, she certainly didn't have to do it after. She probably had that written into a contract somewhere, and she was very quiet through towards the build up of it. It was more of the UFC doing all the hype. When it come down to the actual fight, Matt, obviously this is a wrestling podcast, but people might be going, why are they talking about UFC? the reason we talk about it is because a lot of our listeners are always interested in it. So that's why we give our views on it. And Ronda Rousey in particular definitely has she has quite a crossover to many different sort of entertainments, not just wrestling, but there's a whole unique thing about her. Matt, the promoting was all about what they got. I mean, this is what we always say, isn't it? This is the WWE's advantage over something like UFC is, unfortunately for Dana White and UFC, they can't give and predict their outcome. They cannot do it. They cannot present it, because I'm sure if he was a wrestling promoter, Matt, it would have been Ronda Rousey all the way in this one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you would have thought that makes perfect sense. But you say that you can't really predict your winners like this, but then it works out quite well either way, because Nunes now, people were there to watch Ronda Rousey, and then they came there, they watched this match, and as much as a fan that they might be of Ronda, they now look at Nunes and think, well, if I want to look at some hard hitting action, perhaps I'll tune in to see Nunes fight next time, and just to see her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the thing is, like, she, however you look at it, I've seen a lot of negative reaction to Ronda Rousey, like saying, well, she had a terrible game plan. She kind of fought the stand-up game. Why did she do it? But, I've watched the fight back a few times, Matt, and to be quite honest with you, she gets rattled very, very early. And I think she's kind of in, like, she's in, like, probably shock. I mean, all I hear about is Nunes hits incredibly hard, really hard. And, when that rocks you, I think that was it. I think it was kind of game over from there. Like, the first couple of hits that Nunes got in, I think that rocked Ronda, and she there was no way she was going to be able to stand toe to toe with Nunes from there on in, and the only way she was going to get round it is if she could get a takedown. But she tried the one, and Nunes was having none of it. Nunes kept some tremendous distance between her and Ronda, and the fact is that I think Nunes is just, I think you've got to look at it and you've got to say, well, Nunes is probably at this point a better fighter. I mean, that's the only way you can look at it. You've got to call a spade a spade. It is what it is. I don't think you can, blame it solely on the whole way Ronda went into this. Matt, it happens to a lot of boxers, and we spoke to Daniel Puder about this whole undefeated streak business. And when somebody does beat somebody, especially in boxing, I've seen it happen so many times. When a boxer gets beat finally, he's never the same again, or she's never the same. And it's one of those things, like, mentally, is it like you're saying it in your head, like, okay, now all of a sudden, the so-called UFC God who's looking over me isn't there anymore. Like, I'm not unstoppable. I'm not this, this incredible force anymore. I can get hurt. For me, Matt, the way she took that shot against Holmes, the way that kick landed on her, and, like, whenever you see UFC, like MMA fighters in particular, take a blow to the neck, like the way that she did, they're never going to be the same again. Like, there is always that sort of thing about, could it happen again? And your head's kind of saying to you, this is not going to happen again. Do you think it was a sort of mental blockage with Ronda Rousey, or do you think that she was focused enough that, she did have, a hell of a long time to prepare for it, over a year? What went wrong for her, do you think, Matt, in terms of her preparation, or was there nothing that she did wrong, and it just happens to be that Nunes is just clearly the better fighter? But mentally, Matt, was there anything you felt was missing?
Yeah, I mean, I know she trained incredibly hard leading up to this fight, and I know there's a lot of pressure on her to go on there and go out there and perform and do well, but I think a lot of it really does boil down to, like, real mental like toughness and where your head is at. I would have said there would have been no shame if she didn't get back in that ring for like a few years. It just really comes down to where your mind's at, because you've really got to go in there and believe in yourself. I mean, I can't say that I'm speaking from experience of being a fighter or anything, because I know it's an incredibly tough situation to be in. But from some of the documentaries that I've watched of other people, like if I was going to quote someone, I'd say someone like St. Pierre with his first loss. It took him a long time to get his head into the right state and actually to be solely focused on getting back in that ring and knowing that he could continue and actually go on to be champ and start being dominant again.
Yeah, no, I think I pretty much agree. I mean, the thing is as well is that you can look at it on another ways, that Nunes is, if you think about Nunes, Matt, she's the women's champion. She's the bantamweight champion, and all she's thinking about is that championship. She wants to be the champion, and she's just UFC. She's just fighting. That's exactly what she's doing. I think with Ronda Rousey, Matt, she's got so much other stuff going on that I don't know if she can commit everything to fighting anymore. Like, she's got so much other stuff, whether it's people talking about her, everybody wants to know about her, and I think, in UFC, you've got to be like 100% UFC. Like, you can't have any of this other distractions. So I think that plays a big part of it as well. Obviously, from a wrestling point of view, Matt, we've had lots of emails coming in, and I'll say this much, that everybody kind of is saying, well, is it Ronda's time now to give up fighting and go into WWE or even films for that matter? Matt, what do you think? If you was advising Ronda Rousey, you was one of the kind of agents or whatnot around her, what would your advice be at this point for her going forward? And do you think that after that, do you think herself, do you think she would want to retire?
I would say, UFC is what her first passion was. She got into the UFC for a reason, and she wanted to be the best, and she was the best. She's done that. She's reached that achievement. She's claimed that prize. There's no shame in actually doing other things now and seeking out these other ventures. I would say, that's what she should do. I mean, I'm sure she wants to avenge this loss probably and make up for that. But there's no real point, because if she comes out and loses again to somebody else, then it's really damaging to her brand, because her name is such a huge thing that people can associate with, and she could make a lot of money out of purely just her name. But then other than that, I think if she was to come out and fight someone who wasn't the champ, it's kind of damaging as well, because if she beats them, then there's more pressure that she's got to go up the ranks and then fight for the title again, and it could be quite a vicious circle under those circumstances. I think go off, do the movies and do whatever else you want. Hopefully do something with WWE. That would be amazing. I know that she's got a bit of a passion for wrestling itself anyway, so as a fan, so if she could translate that into something more practical, that would be tremendous. So if that would be great. But then I think it would be a good time now to actually just bow out of it. She can always go back to it in the future. We've seen it with Brock, haven't we? He came back and did tremendously well, in 2016. So, I think it'd be good to do that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on it. I know it kind of, it's definitely easy for us to say bail out. I mean, than when you're Ronda Rousey, and of course, it's not. That is not how you picture your exit. Of course, it's not. But I think you've got to really take a big step back and look at, well, hang on a minute. Before Ronda Rousey was about, UFC didn't even have women's fighters. I mean, Dana White said himself, Matt, it will never be in UFC. I remember him saying it clearly. Women's fighting will never be in UFC. And all of a sudden, Ronda Rousey come on the scene, and women's fighting all of a sudden become, extremely at the focal point. Like, at one time, Matt, I'm going to say that Ronda Rousey was UFC. She was the poster of that company. Without a doubt, this was before Conor McGregor had kind of cemented his name as to where it is now. And her brand, her appeal to so many different crossovers. she will always go down, Matt. I mean, if you think about it, you think of what she's kind of the trend she's set. You look at WWE, Matt. I really believe this is that it's down to Ronda Rousey that we now have a women's division and women being treated as athletes again.